All right, we are live. This might be a disaster, guys. I apologize for this tomfoolery that's been going on. I had to update the site and had to change the assignment submission form over, and by default, that form has its issues. So I apologize. I think there's going to be a couple, maybe a lot. I don't know. Some of these beats will not probably work. So if you're watching this, please DM me in the Discord and let me know. Because yeah, let me know what your correct URL is, and make sure to double check in the past streams area. But other than that, hopefully you guys are doing well. I see Scarlett has 2 submissions, so let's delete that. But yeah, how's it going, guys? Jay Shiggity, Red Octane, T Breezy, P Dub, Holdex. Hope you guys are good. The mic, I assume, is working. Yes, it is. Let's do a quick audio test. As always, let me know if the music's coming through. Let me know if the audio is working. If so, we'll deep dive in. So this 260, how's it going? So this is a Sherb is here. Krabu, how's it going? Mike is good. So yeah, this was a sample-based assignment as usual. We do this every once in a while. A lot of you guys seem to really like the sample. Karen Krog is an excellent artist, full of like very sampleable material. So I thought I would share some of her work as well as give you guys some cool samples to work with now and in the future. Sounds good. Excellent. So let's just jump right in. One thing that I want to mention about next month. So usually what I would do in the past was give you guys the entire month, sometimes like 4 or 5 weeks, to do the beat for the contest that's coming up. Doom Traveler, how's it going? Very curious to hear the different results from the same source material. Yeah, that's I think one of the fun things about doing the sample assignments. This assignment sample had some Audacity, that closing chord. So as I was saying, with past contests, we're going to have the big contest in September where there will be hundreds of dollars worth of the prize and a whole bunch of stuff. Usually I used to give you guys 4 to 5 weeks, the entire month basically, to come up with a single beat. I think this time around what we'll do is do yet another assignment. So that will be on September 10th. That's when that stream is going to be. That way, I give you guys 2 assignments. I can name another $100 prize winner for that stream. And actually, does that even make sense? Because then those beats have to, yeah, we'll carry over those beats. So the next on September 10th, we'll do another $100 prize winner. And then for the 3 weeks following, so you have the 10th until October 1st, that's when the assignment or the contest due date will be. So yeah, that is the plan for September. So a little bit less time to do the actual beat that you come up with, but I don't know if you need an entire month to come up with one single beat anyways. And this way we also have another $100 prize winner within September as well. So I think that's the plan for the upcoming contest, which is exciting. The sample is totally unrecognizable in mine. Couldn't figure out how to use it. Hey, that's completely all right without changing it. Guitar Rig 6 is crazy with what you can do. I actually just, I got Complete recently, and I've been using Guitar Rig 6 as well. Just by the name of it, I just thought like, oh, this is just meant to be like an amp plugin for guitars and stuff, but you can really do a lot of cool things with that. Although whenever I use it, it for some reason defaults into like putting the sound into mono. I don't know if that's one of the things you put in the rack. I'm not sure. But yeah, debut, how's it going? Let's just jump right in and get to spinning. I haven't received any more DMs, so hopefully you guys have checked to make sure your beat is functional and working. If not, please DM me in the coming days and we can get your beat reviewed by the senior Better Beatmaker members afterwards. So let's just go ahead and jump in. The first beat we will hear is from Rosfo. Yeah. Congratulations to Rosfo. I actually did not get a chance to... Actually, whatever. Let's just jump in. Whatever. Here we go. It's going to be the same thing and then a fade out. So let's give this the manual fade out here. Cool beat there, Rosfo. That was the first of the sample flips. Sol Sherry, how's it going? This is dope. In the top left corner, there's a middle option to click that puts it back in stereo. That's good to know. Thank you for that. For as busy as that sample choice is, it's kind of working for me. I just installed Serato 2.0 as well. The stem splitting stuff was wild. This is what I tuned in for, some sweet sample flips. This is gorgeous. I struggled with the sample, so I'm looking forward to hear much better flips. The Sure, man, you're pretty strong with samples usually. I'm interested to hear your beat and why you struggled. Crowtown, how's it going? Nice chill track. So yeah, with this beat, I definitely agree. This is a great choice of the piece of the sample to use. I really love these sort of orchestral types of beats, and I think just how dense the sample is. Did a really good job in filling up a lot of space. The choice to use a filtering as well as a slowing down of the sample was really, really smart as well. So just like Jay Shiggity mentioned, as busy as a sample choice is, it's working for me. And I think, you know, when the sample starts off, I think that's like a really great part to use for like more of a traditional hook, just because it is very busy. This part here. But just like I mentioned in the course, when it comes to thinking about like the complexity of your patterns, and think about space as well, this might make it a little bit difficult to like wrap over and sound a little bit more balanced. And I think it's a very smart choice to then use those effects to create this more verse section that's, you know, because the halftime is used, it's slowed down because there's filtering on it as well. We have this big space up top that's cleared out. I feel like this is much more balanced for a verse, and then we go back into the more high energy section that has a lot more movement for the hook section. So yeah, I think this is very smart for creating a good sense of balance. Just about to say the same thing on the filtering. It's amazing how many directions you can go with the sample. That's part of the sample I originally wanted to use, but couldn't figure out how to flip it well. I just felt like using the violin part was the intro to Maybach music too. Some variation would have helped, says John Sherby. Definitely has more of an interlude feel. That big bass worked wonderfully to punctuate the movement of the sample. Yeah, and I think it's a very effective bass line. It goes well with the actual sample. One thing I'll say is that I kind of wish that the transitions were a little bit more work was done on them, just because, you know, we go from this very high movement, very bright sounding part of the beat in the hook, and we have the sample playing, and then we almost immediately go into this more like darkened, slowed down version of the beat as soon as we hit the verse section, which I think is coming up here. Like right there. I think you smartly did like drop the drums just to signify that something's about to change. But I think something else with the actual sample, maybe, you know, you used effects on the sample, so maybe just having an automation where the effect slowly turns on. Doing something along those lines could have helped. But I think you had the right idea, because you definitely did do some work in dropping the drums there. So that was good, but I just think a little bit more transitions put onto the actual sample would have been better. And I do feel as though the drums were kind of weak sounding, especially the snare. It just feels very pushed back. It just doesn't have much presence or body. It doesn't feel like it's very upfront. And it also feels like the hi-hat's very disconnected from the snare as well. The snare doesn't have much sort of bright presence to it. It's very thumpy and pushed back, whereas the hi-hats are very bright and very piercing, so they sound very upfront. And we sort of have this sort of mismatch of drum and snare here, if you listen. Not to mention that like the hi-hats feel a tiny bit trappy in just how transient they are, and the snare feels a little bit more like acoustic-y or boom-bappy. So I think just having them be a little bit more closer to each other in terms of the space that they sit in and aesthetically speaking could have helped as well. But in terms of the actual sample choice, the way that the sample's used, I think Rosvo did a great job here. I really liked the idea. It really reminds me of like some old Lupe Fiasco or something. So that was, whoops, sorry about that. That was awesome to hear. Pim has just sent me the updated version of his beat here. So let me quickly update that. Thank you very much, Pim. So yeah, good job to Rossville. That was a cool beat. Let's spin it up again. Here we go. And hopefully the next beat is not a ruined one with the shitty URL problem. Anomalous 212. Let's see what Anomalous has for us. Come on. My bad, Anomalous. I goofed up. I assume you're not in the chat. I do apologize for that. So hopefully Anomalous can come through eventually and ask why there's no entry here. Worst comes to worst, you can just message me afterwards and we'll get that sorted out. But once again, my foolishness to not double check things has struck again, and I apologize for that, guys. What have I done? I have let you guys down. T Breezy. Oh! Oh! My God. What drama. I thought like that looks like it's right on the line. That's like 1 pixel away from being on Whirlpool, or that's 260's beat. T Breezy just sent the updated version, so I know this one works. Thank you for that, T Breezy. So let's take a listen to your beat. Alright, this seems to be very quiet, so I'm gonna raise the volume on my end. I'm gonna speak now. Turn your speakers down. All right, you guys have your chance. I'm gonna speak normally now. All right. So yeah, cool beat here by T Breezy. Let's see what the chat is saying. I like the aesthetic, good groove. I like what you do with the vocals. Has a cool, chill vibe, like the vocals in the background and the complementary keys. I dig the ambient vibe and textures. Absolutely love that dripping texture with the Vox sample. I wonder how much of the sample and how much was the extra sounds. It's got a nice feeling, cool, chill vibe, but I think the drums, especially the hi-hat, could be more lo-fi instead of trappy. I don't mind the drum, but maybe they could have been a less bright. How is that whisper so perfect? Should I be an ASMR streamer? So yeah, with this beat, I really love that sort of ethereal idea. I think T Breezy did a really smart job in building the musicality around the sample. So a lot of the times when you have these sort of more vocal oriented loops and you're building the loop and having the vocal be like the POI, you know, it can be very hard to gain a sense of like what is the musical idea and what is the actual progression underneath. And I think T Breezy did a phenomenal job of bringing in his own sounds, like that piano as well as the bass, to really create the progression and build the musicality and introduce it into the beat, as opposed to just depending on the vocal sample and risk it feeling very amorphous and not really having like a strong progression and like sort of undercurrent of musicality. So I think that was a really smart job there, and he did a really good job of building a great progression that worked with the sort of overall feeling. The amount of work that was done to the actual sample, we have like multiple layers of vocal samples, with some are being pitched down, or say pitched up, the other ones being normal pitch. So that was a really smart. I think those ideas really worked well. I think the one thing that Debut as well as Sherby brought up, which is the drums, is probably something that could really be helped here. So with just how floaty and ethereal this beat feels, I think using drums that are just a little bit more grounded, a little bit more present, could have helped. So yeah, with the drums in this beat, we have this very washed out, pushed back snare, which doesn't really do much in bringing like a grounded feel. The hi-hat, it's very bright. I think the kick though also has like zero color. I think one of the good examples of like how helpful having like very impactful drums can be. Let's see if I can. Was it this beat that had the huge drums? So this is Gorilla by Clams Casino. He's known for having very ethereal sounding beats, but you can hear how wide and how upfront and how present that snare is. And it really does a good job in like helping create a grounded feeling in the actual beat. The vocals were in C minor, so I wrote it according to that, but I struggle with drums. Yeah, it's just sometimes as simple as like getting something that has a lot of texture and making sure you don't. This is something that I used to do when I first started making beats as well. I had a hard time figuring out how to choose snares. And oftentimes I would sort of just grab any old snare, put reverb on it, and like push it back into the beat so it wasn't as prominent and loud. And what that did was sort of just mask the issue, just because the sound wasn't as upfront and sort of dominant. The problem didn't feel as apparent. But what happens is, you know, drums are meant to be a grounding force in a lot of beats. You should have them up front and up close, and so if they don't sound good, doing the extra work to like figure out how to choose the right sound is really going to be helpful. What a throwback to The Cell, hot damn. I haven't watched that movie since I was a kid. The movie seemed very disturbing. But yeah, I think just thinking about what the aesthetic is to the beat, how much color you need, what frequencies need to be filled up, and using that to guide your decisions with what snare you want to choose. But as a sort of rule of thumb, if all of your sounds are very ethereal and very reverby, think about staying away from those effects if you're using them on your drums. It's just that same concept we talked about in the chorus of like different depths. Never watched that and need to check it out. I don't know if the movie is actually good or not. That's what I'll say. I remember there was a scene with like a guy hanging himself off of like hooks or something as like a fetish, and I was like, whoa, I'm only 12 years old. I shouldn't be watching this. But yeah, what you did with the actual sample, T-Breezy, really, really well done. A lot of work was done to building the musicality around it too. That was very impressive. So that was really awesome. I think even just this past weekend, I feel like I was listening to Mick Jenkins' new album, and I was like, man, I really need to focus on my own drums and like figure out how I can improve them as well. So it's something that even I would say I struggle with to this day to a degree. So let's move on up to the next beat here. We've got Pim is next, who just updated his beat. We've had all the submissions come on this side of the wheel. I don't know why. So let's listen to Pim's beat here and let me know what you guys think. Pim's beat there. Which part of the sample or what sound in here came from the sample? Did you guys hear it? I really like the beat though. PDab asked, do you advise using any reverb on drums? I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not going to say it's not a black or a white situation. But for the most part, let's say in hip hop, if you're going to use reverb on your drums, just a hint can be a good idea, but like drowning your snare in a bunch of reverb and really pushing it back into the beat. There's definitely beats that where that does happen, but for the most part, you want to be cautious about doing that. And I'll say that if you find yourself constantly putting reverb on your drums, like I mentioned with that story of mine, like that was just a band-aid that I was doing because I wasn't happy with my drum choice. So think about your intent. Why are you doing it? Is it actually helping the beat, or are you sort of just shortcutting or trying to mask a problem? That bass line though, very super cool vibe. Really like the vibe here. The main lead and complementary keys are nice. Drums a touch too rock for me, says T Breezy, but still nice, especially the lead instrument. This is great. I was wondering the same thing, maybe made some one shots from it, but I'm just guessing. Yeah, I'm not sure what came from the actual sample here. But I really like the beat overall. I really love that cool bass choice. Now that you mention it, it does feel like this beat could be part of an older Linkin Park song. Yeah, I really love the bass. Really cool choice there. I like the sort of subtle use of those keys as they come in and they sort of duck out. That really had a dynamic feeling in the beat. And I feel like this beat felt like a full idea, even with the minimal amount of sounds, which goes to the idea of just like simplicity and design. You don't need to like shove in thousands of sounds just for the sake of it. Use a gated reverb on your snares if you want to produce 80s music, says Dune Traveler. I think the one thing that I'll say is that I really do like that main lead sound, that main instrument in the beat. I think it works perfectly as well. I do think maybe using a touch of like an effect that has a little bit of movement, whether it's like vibrato or something with like a little bit of a ducking, just because when we get to that long note, fucking Google Drive, when we get to that long note that plays, that do, it does feel as though it's a little bit static. So I think just adding like a touch of like movement onto it, with like maybe even a small little delay, just so you get a little bit of carryover from the past notes, or maybe just like a little bit of vibrato or something. Just a small detail there. By no means is that like ruining the beat or anything. I think that could be like a small little detail you can think about. But overall, I really like this beat. Sherb on point today. I could totally hear that slam into a chuggy riff for sure. Actually, yeah, I didn't mind the drums. They do have a little bit of that. I don't know if it is a rock aesthetic. It does feel as though just something simple as like adding a little bit of static and maybe reducing how punchy the drums are can make it feel a little bit more hip hoppy. But it is, for the most part, it does feel like it could have come from like a old dusty break. There are plenty of beats that have these types of drums in them. I don't think it's explicitly like a old rock song or anything like that. I do think the aesthetic does work. I used a piece somewhere in the middle of the sample in the beat. It's the lead sound. Oh, okay. That's a really good job of using that. So I guess you resampled that. So you mapped it across different keys and used it as your main lead. That's impressive. That's an awesome job there, Pim. Really cool idea. But yeah, I feel like this beat does a good job of showing just how good, just how important design is. This beat feels like a full idea. We all sort of get a feeling from it. It gets its idea across, and yet it doesn't have like 1,000 different sounds. So I think Pim did a great job here. Same thing with the arrangement. We have, higher energy parts, lower energy parts. So yeah, I think Pim, you did a fantastic job here. And I like the sampling technique as well, of just like isolating one single note, and that can be enough. You don't necessarily have to make the sample like the start of the show in terms of like cutting and pasting an entire loop in. I remember on some of my YouTube comments in the very beginning of my channel, I used to catch shit from some people because I would do a similar thing of just like, I'm going to take this small little piece here and use it as a sample. And then people would be like, you're ruining the integrity of the sample. You need to keep the spirit of the sample in your beat. And I was just like, where is it written that that's something I have to do? So I think this is an awesome job, Pim, of just showing that, you know, you can just use it for just one small little sound and include it in your beat, and that can be enough. Good job, Pim. I really like that beat. Next up, we've got Crap Quee. I apologize for the vile word that I just used there. Let's jump in here. Where are we? Where are we? There we go. Marcin just submitted this updated link. right, that was Marcin's beat 009, perhaps the 9th beat he's ever made. Let's see what the chat is saying. Nice lo-fi vibes, dope sampling, great lo-fi vibes. While I enjoy that Fate echoey vocal in the background, sometimes it feels off, says John Sherby. The tambourine sounding loop is nice, but possibly slightly too fast. I like the attention to detail with some ear candy. The little guitar scratches are a cool touch, says Red Octane. Yeah, I feel like I like the core idea of this beat. I like the sampling approach here with that vocal. Red Octane says, I feel it's missing some rhythm melodically though. So yeah, what was I saying? I like the vocal approach to the sample here. You can sort of hear it in the background there. I think this beat has all the right pieces. I think the way they're put together has some balancing issues. So for example, it does feel as though That sound is very, very faint in the background. And to me, that would be the sound that like is sort of meant to stand out and like be the thing that makes the beat sound interesting, but it's very, very much in the background. And for example, when we get to this part here, like the hi-hats are very, very quiet in the very beginning. Yeah, I just feel as though like the vocals here are very quiet as well. So I think like I mentioned in the chorus, think about your POI. I'm not sure if Marcin has started the program yet, but the idea of it is like, what is the component in your beat that's meant to sound special, and make sure you position it and use your effects and put it in a way where, you know, it's meant to be in focus and what the actual audience can hear, as opposed to just like drowning out. I think the monkey screech, that's John Sherby, sounds during the main part of the beat may have been used for variation, which I think doesn't do the beat any service, and maybe some actual beat variation would have kept it a little bit more interesting. Crab says, yeah, so the course unlocks for the Crab September, which is coming up. Tambourine here was sampled, and chords were some sounds in key mode in Serato. Yeah, I think the chords sounded really, really good. I think it did exactly what they were meant to do. They really anchored the beat and created some musicality. So I think like I mentioned, like all the ideas are in this beat. I think just repositioning where things are and pushing some things a little bit more up front and forward can really, really help. So like you said, the course has not unlocked yet. I think that's something that the course will help sort of really illustrate, which is that when you're positioning your sounds, thinking about like, how loud should this sound be? How loud should that one be? It'll give you like a good framework for really thinking that through, and how to build the right patterns around it and whatnot. So I think you've done a good job of creating like a good core idea, and it's definitely here. I think once the course unlocks, I'll give you the next set of keys to help you really understand how to position everything correctly and produce around it. Yeah, I think that's all I'll say for now. I know Sherby mentioned about the arrangement ideas and whatnot. I think like that's something that's a little bit down the road. I think just the core skills are what are most important. And thinking about arrangement can be something a little bit down the road once you've really got the initial steps of like how to build a core loop. So I think that's something that Marcin, the course, will help you really start with, because that's the first section of the course. But yeah, thank you for submitting though. I think this is something that I forget to say all the time, but it's really awesome that you guys submit your beats, and it shows a lot of courage. I know for a lot of people, like, they will put themselves in a state of like almost delusion, and they don't want to put their beats out there. They never share them. They just make them private, and they secretly think they're like the next big thing, and yet they never get any feedback from the real world, because it's scary. You know, you might have someone criticize you or maybe point out some things that don't feel all that great when you hear them, but nonetheless, that's how you improve and get better, pending it comes from a good, genuine place. And so just the fact that you're willing to put your beats out there for critique is a very courageous thing to do. And I think that's exactly what people who get good at things tend to do. They put their thing out there, ask people, what do you think of this? They get doo-doo flung at them, and they choose to improve every single time. It's a process of iteration. But next up, we have Cora. We do have a Red Octane Cora Beats beat coming up. Cora said it's going to be very hard to hear the actual sample in his beat. He's not a big sampler, so let's take a listen. right, that was Triumph by Cora Beats, who just finished saying that he gets nervous when his beats get played on stream. The harsh criticisms, they don't happen here. Yeah, I think this is a very positive, inviting environment. We don't really roast or slam dunk on people. Love the horns, says P-Dub. The textures is so nice, and those triumphant horns. Love the big sound, says Sherby. Incredible transition, smooth. Love the switch up. Very cool sound selection, says P-Dub. Very nice bass. I feel maybe the drums are a bit too harsh at points, says the Sherb man. Yeah, with this beat, like Core mentioned, the sample is like very hard to hear. It sounds like there's like a lot of effects that were done, a lot of creative effects probably. Tell us the secret. Where's the sample? Is it throughout or during the switch up? I don't know. I assume it's like that really mystical, ethereal sound that we hear in the background. Like I'm assuming it's this part here with tons of effects on it. Could be wrong though. But yeah, I really like the bedrock of the beat. Like that sound is really, really phenomenal. It creates this very ethereal, floaty feel. Really interesting pattern as well. I love the bass in the beat as well, especially in the middle here. Just how colorful it is. I like the drum structuring, the way the drum pattern is built. Yeah, so I think those components of the beat I really like. Like John Sherby mentioned, some of the drums sound a little bit loud, especially that secondary snare that you use right there. Like if it feels a lot more dominant compared to the snare that's on like the 2 and the 4, or the 3 and the 7. So yeah, I think oftentimes with like those secondary snares, having them sound that loud and even more dominant as the primary ones, that might be the reason it feels a little bit off. The transition, like who was that in the chat that mentioned that the transition as we go into that spacey part was really, really awesome. It's the chord layer basically, as well as the transition sound. I resampled the sample of the sample and added more effects during the transition, and yeah, it's the sound in the intro. Yeah, I really love what you did with the sample in that case. That's a really cool transition there. The slight like pitch bending effect in there, the gating. And that was really cool. I really love this part of the beat. But personally, I feel as though like the brass is just so big in this beat. And like I always mention, brass is very hard to pull off. I almost feel like this part of the beat should be like the main verse. I think this has a good amount of balance, whereas the part with the brass is very big, very like upfront. So I feel like that would be something more tailored for a hook. And yeah, I think that would be the big change that I would make here. I definitely should have EQ'd the drums more and used velocity to tame some of them. This is Deckard's theme if he's not a replicant. But yeah, I think that was like the major switch up that I probably would have made. But I really, really love what you did with the sample. Once again, it's really cool to see how different everyone uses sample. I just think changing the arrangement of it and really focusing on this part here and making that the core of the beat as opposed to just having brass, that brass sound, which is a little bit large. And I'm not sure whether it felt like it fit with like this very electronic-ish, ethereal feel to the sample. Yeah, that just might be my personal taste though. Yeah, thank you for submitting, Cora. Hopefully the nervousness did not result in you shitting yourself, and that went better than expected, hopefully. Let's see what's coming up next. We have Whirlpool's beat. By the way, we are gonna be releasing another one of those quizzes. I don't know when Karasan was gonna have it done. Hopefully tomorrow. Maybe I will ask him after the stream. But yeah, nonetheless, we're probably going to be doing another one of the quizzes in September as well. We're going to try that out, another 2 of them maybe for September. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about the quizzes. Hopefully we improve them. I know the first one was probably a little bit difficult. I'm not sure how many of you guys have tried doing them, but nonetheless, which one do you guys get value out of more? Hopefully as we improve the quiz, we can get like a better feel for what exactly that could be. But it's either that or we go back to the beat reconstructions. But yeah, hopefully you guys have some input. It shows Whirlpool, right? Yeah. Yeah, if you guys have any ideas for like how it can be improved, some topics that you'd like to see, whether you would want it to be just specifically focused on one type of effect or technique as opposed to something a little bit more broad. I was thinking of maybe creating like a leaderboard little thing and maybe having some cash prizes attached to that. That could be a good idea. But yeah, let me know what your guys' thoughts are, and we'll see what the stats say in terms of how many people watch reconstruction videos versus how many people actually do the quiz. Anyways, let's jump in. All right, short beat idea there. Let me just finish writing what I was gonna say. There we go. Cora mentioned we were thinking of making the quiz as one subject at a time instead of a smorgasbord. What are your guys' thoughts on what would you like to see with the next one? This goes hard, says T Breezy. Slap, says Jay Shiggity. Got me nodding. This is what I wish I could do with samples. So good. I like the manipulation of the vocal. Fire, says W. Glad to see there was some variation, says John Sherby. Wish it was longer though. We would like to see the arrangement pushed. Oh, this breakdown. No, it was the end. Add a second verse and this is perfect. Okay, it's over. Yeah, I feel the same thing. I really like the sample choice once again. I like the way it was chopped up and it created this very like aggressive, hard feeling. Yeah, it came in with like the actual sample. And then you have the chop here. I think the way everything is built around it, very smartly done, so we don't have something that's super melodic with the bass line, but that's sort of what you want whenever you have something that you want to create some aggression in it. The drum pattern works very, very well. Yeah, the sample itself as well as the drum structure around it and the loop that's built here, very, very well done. I think as everyone else mentioned, I would have liked to see the actual arrangement be pushed, and I think that's tremendously important, especially with these types of beats. fundamentally here we have like a very short loop, and even the way the sample's chopped, we have like a very repeating loop within just like one bar. And so we have inherently with a lot of these aggressive types of beats, they are a little bit more like prone to being repetitive just because you have a little bit more of a monotonous feel. And so, you know, ducking out sounds, introducing new sounds, thinking about how to change the sample every once in a while, those types of things are going to be very important. And even the bigger, more substantial changes to the actual beat are going to be important as well, instead of just like maybe ducking out sounds every once in a while. So I think I would have liked to see that, and maybe that's the reason why this beat's only a minute long. Maybe Whirlpool got a little bit stuck there. Karasama is doing EQ right now, so compression it is. So yeah, I think I would have liked to see a little bit more substantial changes. I think a really good, let's just play another beat here. So this is something that has like a very, it's one of those types of beats that could possibly feel very repetitive if the smaller arrangement ideas weren't done. So let's quickly jump in and play this example. I'm not sure if I played this song for you guys before, but I really like it. I play it in the gym very often. But this gives you like a good idea of like how to keep a beat interesting, maybe adding like how adding just one small sound every once in a while can really help create a sense of dynamic in the beat. To the full beat later if you'd like, but you can hear like these small little changes to the drum pattern, ducking out sounds, adding in small little transition sounds, but also just like adding one small layer of a new sound. So for example, after like the first 4 bars, we have like that vocal sample that comes in, and then it sort of like gets looped up and repeated to add another layer, and then we have this really cool like scratchy one shot. So it doesn't have to be a huge substantial change. You can still keep that underlying idea, but just understanding how to like control your beat and add energy and dip out energy. So again, especially for these very highly aggressive beats like this, which are, you know, this bass is like very monotonous, is not like very melodic overall. You don't have this huge, beautiful melodic pattern here. It's just very aggressive. But yeah, you can hear that beat. This is Wild. Show us the name of it. I'll copy and paste it in the chat here. Seriously, this is ridiculous. Yeah, I told you guys about Ivy Lab before. I'm gonna add a second verse to my beat for sure, and some more variation. Yeah, I think just pushing yourself, and then, you know, it's gonna be very difficult. Especially if, you know, adding sounds into your beat is something that you might struggle with. But again, I say this all the time, like that's the skill that unlocks a lot of the secondary skills. So make sure you work on that. Triggered my anxiety in the best way. Yeah, Ivy Lab is awesome. A lot of their beats have that sort of similar feel. If you guys like that tune, you'll like a lot of their other ones. All right, let's spin it up. We are an hour in. We have another hour to go. We've got a classic Jesse Too Hazy beat here. Jesse is a previous winner of the best beat of the month. So let's see what he's got for us this time. This beat's called Wraith. Here we go. Outro there. That was Jesse's beat there. Crushing it as always. Intro goes hard, says Whirlpool. Damn, this mix is massive. Nice dark vibes. That bass line hits. I can feel it in my chest. Slams, says P-Dub. The drums seem a little too bright. Could have used a little bit more balancing. Also, that bass glide was a bit too loud and bright too. Great variation in sequencing. Very dark and cinematic. Awesome beat, says the Sherb. Yeah, I feel like with this beat, awesome job of using the sample. So once again, we're seeing an example here of like it doesn't have to be like super on the nose. It can be something very subtle. And I think that's what we have here. Jesse makes some bangers, says Red Octane. I love the arrangement as well. It was really cool to hear the use of the bass as the thing that is like the vehicle for variation. So yeah, with like the hook, we have like a little bit more of a simple bass line, but then once we get into the verse section, the sample as well as the other sounds drop. And so in order to create something that's a little bit different, we have a little bit more of a complex bass line. And we have like small little sample interjections throughout, but the bass line is like the main component to create the variation. And I think that's really cool. I think it really makes you rethink, you know, just how much you have to change from going from verse to hook. Because this definitely felt like it's very obvious which part's the hook and which part's the verse, all mostly driven through the bass line. And he was able to keep the beat interesting and different just by changing the bass line for the most part. So yeah, that was really awesome to hear. So John mentioned that the drums seem a little bit too bright. Could have used a bit more balancing. Yeah, I felt like when the drums as well as the piano came in, they were very, very prominent. So I do think reducing the volume could have been a play. And I also did feel as though like the piano, um, it didn't feel as though there was enough of like an interestingness to the piano. Um, so like for the hook, for example, I think the strings from the sample, they do a good job of like creating character for this part of the beat. Fucking Google Drive. But then once we're just stuck with the piano, it did feel as though it just felt out of the piano itself. Maybe that's a problem, the actual texture. It doesn't feel as though there's much character to it. Having said that, later on in the beat, I think it's around 2 minutes, Jesse stacks another sound on top of it. And I think it's like this very plucky sound. I think once we get to that part, the piano sound and like that layer sounds a lot more interesting. So I think maybe I probably would have used that sound throughout the entire beat as opposed to just at the tail end there. I think that would have interjected a little bit more character to the beat, just because, like I said, during the verse, it was primarily the piano, which is meant to like carry and be the part of the beat that adds a little bit more character. But I felt as though the actual texture that was used could have been a little bit more interesting. Sweet Tea, how's it going? I got a brand new name to reflect my channel. Awesome. Yeah, once again, you know, Jesse's coming with the heat. He sent this a week ago. Very productive is Jesse. Let's spin it up again. Here we have Mahal Beats, who's also a newer member as well. That's one thing that I believe I was supposed to do, which is I did not keep track of which members have not had their beats reviewed yet. My bad on that one. Let's jump into this beat first. Did I screw up something? Did I play the wrong beat? Where am I here? You are right. We are listening to the same beat as before. And I cannot figure out how to get this window back into Chrome. My apologies. Out here wasting time. I'm a fool. I think Mahal has a SoundCloud link. Yes, you are right. All right, and we also, sorry, I had to figure out which producer is the first time submitter, which is Scarlett. Unfortunately, the stupid thing ruined this. Let's see if Scarlett has it public. No. My bad. So I'll have to reach out to Scarlett for that. Anyways, let's go to Mahal Beats. Here we go. Let me quickly rewind here. I just increased the bass. I just want to hear the balance in the first part of the beat. Okay, that was Mahal's beat. Project 2, possibly Mahal's second beat ever. I don't know. Had some technical difficulties last minutes on this one, says Mahal. A little low, says John Sherby. Beastie Boy vibes. Lost my mid-frequency sounds. Very cool. Has a good core idea, but some variation is needed. Was it with a mastering tool or something? The EQ of the mastering tool cut out the mids. Okay, 2 for 1. I really like the second one more. Has good energy and movement. Feels a little bit more lively. The sounds were offbeat for some reason. Nice drum groove on the drum pattern. Sunday Devil feature, I love it. I didn't think it'd be possible to use any of the electric piano solo as a sample. That was dope. I think these two parts are great starters for both what could be fleshed out for each other. Yeah, I feel like with the beats that were made here, I liked the core loop, the core idea for both of them. I think they worked. I like this one, very chill, smart idea here with the way the patterns are built. We have this sort of cascading downwards electric piano. We have this very, short bass line, which does have a little bit of color on it. So I didn't feel as though the low mids were like entirely missing. I do feel like the beat had a nice amount of warmth. Yeah, so I think this part was cool. Then we go to this beat. A little bit more movement, a little bit more lively. So yeah, I think these beats here have a good core idea. I just think as I think that this sort of approach to like having one beat and then another beat, just like Sherby says, these two sound like great starters. I would have just liked whether one or the other was chosen, and sort of you pushed yourself to make those into a full beat, because my sort of alarms are going off in my head of just like, well, why was this the idea here? Is it just because you were sort of like unable to manipulate the sample to create different parts of the beat and create like a verse and a hook? Is that the reason why the beat here has two different parts? And so yeah, I think just like Sherby said, it would have been better if you just practiced on one idea or the other and like tried to figure out how you can chop up the sample, create a different bass line, add more sounds into the beat in order to make this into a full beat. And that really helps you practice a lot more skills, as opposed to just, chopping one loop from the beat and creating patterns around it and then chopping another piece. You're sort of just practicing the exact same skill over and over again, as opposed to trying to figure out, how can I add more sounds into this beat, which is a very core skill that you need to learn, as well as, secondary arrangement ideas. So yeah, I think you have two good core ideas here. I think just expanding on them as opposed to just making one beat with two beat ideas would be the play here. I think that's going to be more beneficial to improving as a producer and beat maker, forcing yourself to like really challenge yourself. I had an idea put together, but still trying to figure things out. Fair enough. Yeah, I think working on that, and I mean, we're gonna have the next assignment coming up, so hopefully that's something you can keep in mind for the next submission that you have. So yeah, let's keep on trucking. We have Dos Dos up next. Let's see here. Where are we at? Yeah. Ugh. Doses beat. Very good job there. Let's see what the chat's saying. Coming in hot. That started pretty abruptly. On that topic, some sort of lead intro would be nice. Very cool snarls used for transitioning. Nice beat. Love the drums and sample choice, but they are all fighting for attention. Some balancing and EQing is needed. I dig the way the crate dust seems to evenly spread among all the sounds, says Jay Shiggity. I like the sample outro, says Sherby. Let me play that back to hear the actual intro like you guys mentioned. Interesting. So yeah, I think this beat does a really good job of layering. So you hear we have this very basic, great framework that we were just listening to, and you know, doesn't have too much complexity, doesn't have like a high amount of rhythm or musicality. And so if we just had this beat left here, it'd probably sound a little bit repetitive. But I think that's exactly why Dos Dos was able to come in and just add this really, really great piece of the sample that has a lot of movement, a lot of color, a lot of character with the electric piano here. It's very hypnotic. I really, really like that idea. And I think the way that everything was built around it was really, really smart. It's very easy to understand which part is the intro, or sorry, which part is the hook, which part's the verse. Like you guys mentioned, maybe something a little bit more fluid for the intro, but that's, you know, not a big deal. Yeah, I just think the way the beat's constructed, the loop was constructed, the pieces were added on top of each other. Really, really good job here, Dos Dos. What John Sherby mentioned about the drums and sample choice are fighting with each other. Some balancing and EQ might be needed. It did feel as though there's a tiny bit of bit crushing on the snare, and it did feel a little bit up front, especially during the drum roll that we just heard. But I didn't feel as though it was too distracting, especially for the part of the beat where everything sort of minimizes. There is a lot of stereo presence to the actual snare, so maybe reducing that, but that make the beat feel a little bit too small. Overall, I didn't feel as though the bounce issue was like too bad. Curious how this beat would have sounded with some vocals on top. Maybe that would really illustrate just how present that snare is, as well as the tambourine loop. But overall, I really like this beat. Very smooth, very hypnotic, especially when that sample comes in. I like the way the sample is used. It's not as if we have it playing all the time. Yeah, just really cool and chill. I don't really have much negative to say about that. I really, really like that beat. Really smooth, really awesome. And again, just great design. Just the amount of sounds that you need, it's right there. The beat feels full. Let's see what P-Dub has for us, though. P-Dub has been in the chat, patiently waiting. So let's see what we have with a P-Dub type beat here. That was P-Dub's beat there. Karen Krog sample. Whoopsies. Let's highlight P-Dub here. There you go. Let's see. I suck at sampling, says P-Dub. This is why we practice and improve. Never used momentum before. I like the glitchy feel to it. Smooth. Love how smooth the vocal samples are integrated into the beat, says Doom Traveler. Great vibe. Love the variety of beats today, says 260. Nice effects and chops. I love the unique percussive elements. Just like anything, it takes time. There are so many different ways to sample. It just comes down to your ear and what speaks to you. I think this is a really cool, chill beat all around. P-Dub says, I know it's kind of repetitive. So yeah, with this beat, P-Dub, I feel like this is showing a lot of progress. I think your ability to position sounds is getting much, much better. I remember when you first started, it felt as though, you know, you had sounds sitting in the background that shouldn't have been. You had sounds that had like very interesting and odd panning. But I think your sound positioning is getting really, really good. The way you're building patterns also very, very good. Initially, I think I remembered you struggle with drum patterns and understanding, you know, just how to create a good foundation. I think you've gotten better at that as well with this beat. Same thing with the amount of balance in the beat as well. Like I mentioned, sometimes certain sounds that should have been loud were quiet and vice versa, but you're getting a very, very good understanding of how to position your sounds and also how to make them sound prominent in the beat when they need to be and less so otherwise. Just like Sherby said, I didn't feel it was repetitive either. You did a good job of introducing that sample every once in a while to create some variation. So I think, again, your understanding of arrangement concepts as well. It was very sort of chaotic and hectic before, but you're getting a little bit more strong at understanding, you know, you don't need to reinvent the beat every single time. Just adding small layers here and there is enough, which is exactly why Sherby also mentioned it didn't feel repetitive. Red Octane says your progress has been great. This feels full frequency wise. All the sounds work well together and you don't feel sounds like the sounds aren't as stock like in the past. I thought it was super interesting how you treated the vocal sample as more of a verse, like Karen was literally featured on the track. Which ones could have been more balanced? I'm talking about like the prior beats that you submitted. I think with this beat, you did a really, really good job. So yeah, I think your pattern building, the sound positioning, the balance, very, very good. I think maybe we'll talk about like what some ideas are you could do in the future. When it comes to the underlying progression that you make, think about taking some of those chords and not having them play exactly at this beginning of each and every single bar. Yeah, at the tail end of that last bar, we do have a little bit of variation, but I think just thinking about how you can take your progression or whatever the underlying sort of anchor of the beat is, and maybe playing around with, you know, when those notes start and end, I think that can really help introduce a lot of cool rhythms and ideas into your beat. So I think that would be something that you can think about for the next beat that you submit. But yeah, I think with the actual textures that you built, the way you're able to integrate the sample into the actual beat that you made. It's all very well done. So I think that's the one and only challenge that I will give you this time, P-Dub, just because this beat sounds like you made a lot more progress than in this short amount of time. And this beat's really showing that. Radovsky says shifting chords around is a great way to add variation and give your beat such a great bounce. That's something that's helped me a lot. Yeah, I think playing around with when you start and end, those sort of the core foundation of the beat, and playing around with those notes can really, really have a huge effect on making your beat sound less of a predictable beat. So good job to, wait, why did I highlight Jay Shickety? Good job to P-Dub there. That was an awesome beat. Did I listen to Jay Shickety's beat? No, I didn't. So yeah, that's really makes me happy to see how much progress you've made, especially with this beat. Maybe sampling is your secret forte and you didn't know it this whole time. Same with your kicks. Don't put one on every one and then play them early or late around the one. Yeah, that's definitely a great idea as well. In the course, I talk about how, putting a kick on the 1, a snare on the 2, and the 4 are definitely important. That's probably the most important thing to do at the very beginning of your loop. But as you go in later, I would say keeping the snare on the 2 and the 4 is probably going to be a good idea. Because playing around too much with that can really get your beat to sound loopy. But playing around with the kick on the 1 afterwards can definitely help that idea as well. Don't get too excited. You know what? I am excited. P-Dub, I believe in you more than you believe in you. P-Dub for president. That's what I say. We got the Sherb man up next. Sherb also mentioned there's a little bit of struggling with this sample for Sherb. So let's see what Sherb came up with. That was Sherb's beat there. Let me finish what I'm typing here, or writing. Right. Let's see what the chat is saying. My struggle was mostly time, as I couldn't spend the time on the sample the way I wanted. So I give you this. I wanted to make sure I had something to submit. P-Dub says this is sick, eerie feel to it. You said it earlier, you didn't have time to dig up into the sample. Sounds like you did to me. These effects are wild. Figured I'd try something I don't normally do. Really digging all the warble and delay. Bass was a little bit quiet, however. I also love the smacking bass, though that might just be me. Maybe some saturation for upper harmonics. Damn, I wanted more, said Creed. A very eerie, trippy beat here. Yeah, really good structuring with the beat. There's like a very interesting core idea. I really like the arrangement as well, the way you're able to like duck out different pieces from the sample and create different parts of the beat, and you like really picked up the energy during the hook when you added like a little bit more complexity to the drum pattern. Right here. So I think maybe one of the things that could have given you a little bit of a struggle there. So all the samples were played in reverse except for the vocals. Oftentimes whenever I take like a big piece of a sample and apply these effects, I like sort of create this sort of wobbly feeling. What I often find is that it becomes a bit difficult to add more sounds and layers into the beat because you're sort of limited by like the most dense part of that sample. And so with this, like the sample that you used, it does have like a chord in it. It does have its own progression. And so even though sometimes it feels as though it's very thin because you have that effect on it, it is still like contributing to the actual progression that is in your beat. And so when it comes to like adding your own maybe Fender Rhodes underneath or like some other sound, maybe like an organ or some sort of lead, you probably just struggle to like figure out how to do that just because it's already existing in the sample, although it's like sort of not as present as you might like. So that might be why you're struggling, maybe taking a smaller piece of the sample and introducing your own sounds. After that could be an idea. Like the switch between the 1x1 and the warble part. But yeah, I didn't feel as though the beat itself like lacked anything. It was yeah, that explains why I struggled with adding extra layers. Yeah, I think that is something that I often struggle with as well. Damn this Google Drive. So yeah, that's probably the reason why. My chain is doing some magic. Looks like it's twisting itself as it moves. Is it? Let's hope. Is it because the light is reflecting off of it? I don't know. But yeah, I feel like that was probably why you struggled. But yeah, I think you're usually strong with sampling. So I don't think this is like an inherent problem or anything. Good arrangement in here. Again, good structuring. And I think the drum pattern was great. I think just the piece of the sample that you chose is probably what gave you so much struggle. And maybe, yeah, I don't know what the solution of that would be other than to choose another piece of the sample. I originally wanted to use the violin, but couldn't get that going, so I switched up to a different electric piano part. Interesting. Let's keep going. We'll do 2 more beats, maybe 3. And yeah. We got Creed up next, who's in the chat, I believe. Who's jumping for joy right now. Where's Creed? Here we go. All right, a big goof, a big gaffe by Creed, or possibly me, because the thing got cut off probably. Let's see if it's on the main. Whoops. Let's see if it's on Creed's main. Nope, 6 months ago. All right. So Creed, if you're in the chat, please DM me your full beat because it got cut off, my friend. And we'll get back to that one after this one. We got Z-Lock coming up. Where in God's name is Z-Lock? There we go. Wander is the beat name. That was Z-Lock's beat there. Like how that came in, says Sherby. That's dope. Nice drop. By the way, Creed, I got your beat, so I'll be playing that after. Love that intro. Caught me by surprise with that drop in chops. Like how that EP and bass complement each other. The pocket is so deep. I'm grabbing my bass after this stream. This is awesome. The transitions are nice. A nice call and response with them at times while also being very cohesive. The slight timing difference on them is awesome. Keep the movement going. Great beat like energy. Yeah, I feel the same way as you guys. I don't really have much criticism for this beat. Great job with the layering and building around the sample. We have that great pitched up vocal sample, and we have this really beautiful electric piano with this great upright bass, it sounds like. Strong drums. The arrangement constantly had things being dropped and added, so it never felt as though we're hearing the same thing over and over again. I feel like a very good rapper could come in, someone like J. Cole or something, and like really flourish on this beat. It has a great pocket. Don't really have anything negative to say about this one. I think Z-Lock, the last few submissions by Z-Lock have been very strong. Very strong. We might have someone in the running for best beat of the month, maybe? I don't know. I do listen to every single beat, though, so don't worry, guys. Even if I don't listen to on stream, you are eligible for best beat of the month. Anyways, let's listen to Creed's beat. But yeah, with that last beat, Z-Lock, I don't have any criticism, unfortunately. I think you crushed it there. Maybe slightly pulling back on the kick, but that's just me nitpicking. I think that kick really cut through. So I think it depends on how the vocals sound with the beat. Yeah, great job though. Awesome beat. That's Any Love by Creed. Big old drums. I dig the chaotic feel, but I would probably give that main sample a break every now and then, says Jay Shiggity. Yeah, with his beat, I think good job of building the core loop and idea on this one, Creed. I really like the bass line that you programmed as well. Initially, I was worried that there'd be nothing down there, but I think not only did you build a bass line, you built a really, really good one. I thought it had a great amount of bass, and I really loved the timing of the different notes. Red Octane says I really enjoyed the chops initially, but would have liked to hear some variation later on. Maybe even just a sample pitch down or halftime. Yeah, I feel the same way. After a while, it did feel as though I would like some more variation. Also, the open hi-hat behind the snare was a little bit distracting as well. That one there. It just feels so much louder and so much bigger than the actual snare itself. So, I don't know if you guys know this, but my camera is positioned, or my desk is positioned so I can see an entire building right across. Okay, right across from me. And I'm looking into an apartment right now. I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but they just took off their underwear and are now walking around their apartment. So that's fun to see. I think they're like an old 50-year-old person. So anyways, let's keep it going. Yeah, I need to work on my variation in my arrangement. So what's interesting about this beat is when we compare it to Z-Lock's beat, with Z-Lock, he used a very small piece of the actual sample, just that vocal sample for the most part. And so he was able to like add filtering onto it, remove it completely from the beat, add in shakers once in a while. And it felt like the changes that were made were just a little bit more substantial. With Creed's beat here, it's interesting because we have a sample in the beat as well, but because it's such a huge, substantial part of the beat that if it were to get ducked out and removed the exact same way some of those other layers from Z-Lock's beat were removed, the entire beat would sort of start to sound really, really flat and very thin. So I think that's one of the hard parts about using a sample in this very central way and having it anchor so much of your beat and fill up so much space, which is that it makes arranging so much harder. And at that point, like, it becomes very, very imperative, especially with like a 1-bar loop like this, to actually figure out some ideas with your sample. My bad, I'll close the curtain. Are you a 50-year-old Asian woman? I didn't know Jay Shiggity was right across the street from me. Free entertainment. I feel that after making your initial loop and getting everything sounding good, it can be hard to add something during the arrangement to keep it fresh. It reminds me of the time I saw people getting it on the first floor of a hotel with the lights on and the curtains open. On the first floor? That's audacious. But yeah, I think just like Cora mentioned, using effects, maybe some halftime, maybe pitching it up, changing it. Ideally, using a different piece of the same sample would be nice. Playing around with the rhythms and adding effects. So one of the things that I like to do is, like, maybe instead of using the entire loop, you'll play like a short chop every other beat, and then you can add like some reverb and some tail end to it. So you still have the same sound. It's still creating the exact same progression. But now you've just opened up a little bit more space, so you can add maybe one small little sound, and oftentimes that can be enough to create the amount of variation that you need. So I think when it comes to samples, getting creative and really pushing yourself to think about how you can take the sample, especially if it's taking up so much room in your beat, and like think about it just like any other sound. Like if you had these huge chords in your beat, what could you do to really open up space to add in more sounds into it? Obviously, you're stuck with the actual notes themselves and how wide they are, but changing the length of the actual notes, really chopping them up, maybe adding some filtering. There's a lot of different things you can think about. Maybe changing the timing of when they play. Like Cora mentioned, maybe changing the pitch or maybe the rhythm. Yep, definitely was their thing. Watched it with my best friend's wife. Got awkward really quick. Oof. But yeah, I think you have a good starting point here. I really like the core idea, like I said. I think just the arrangement is something that you can think about working on. But yeah, that is it for the beats, the review this time around, guys. If you didn't get your beat reviewed, do not worry. You will get a follow-up from the lovely boys that are working in Better Beatmaker. Like I mentioned, we will do one more assignment that will be due in 2 weeks, and then the official big contest begins. And yeah, if you guys want to DM me, if you double checked your beat and it's not working, please do so. Otherwise, hopefully you guys have a good remainder for the rest of your Sunday. I plan on possibly eating some cheese. That's what I got lined up for myself. Hopefully you guys have something more exciting. Anyways, I will see you guys in 2 weeks, and hopefully you had fun. Bye-bye.